السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We continue inshallah ta'ala with Surah Al-Ma'arij, Surah number 70, and we'll go through inshallah ta'ala verses 24 to 35. And this is brief, otherwise each ayah is a subject by itself. Continuing with the characteristics of the believers, we'll start with the recitation inshallah. Repeat after me inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. والذين في أموالهم حق معلوم للسائل والمحروم والذين يصدقون بيوم الدين والذين هم من عذاب ربهم مشفقون إن عذاب ربهم غير مأمون والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم فإنهم غير ملومين فمن ابتغى وراء ذلك فأولئك هم العادون والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون والذين هم بشهاداتهم قائمون والذين هم على صلاتهم يحافظون أولئك في جنات مكرمون والذين في 45 counts أموالهم حق معلوم تنوين after تميم إضغام للسائل 45 counts والمحروم والذين يصدقون بيوم الدين والذين هم 2 counts والذين هم من عذاب ربهم the same thing مشفقون إن 2 counts عذاب ربهم غير مأمون normal paste والذين هم لفروجهم حافظون إلا على 45 counts أزواجهم أو ما ملكت أيمانهم make sure the ta is said أيمانهم فإنهم 2 counts غير ملومين فمن باء سكون قلقلة فمن ابتغى and the gha is heavy and before that is light فمن ابتغى وراء if you can the waw is light also and the ra is heavy وراء 45 counts also ذلك فأولئك 5 counts هم العادون والذين هم لأماناتهم وعهدهم راعون والذين هم بشهادة إخفاء والذين هم بشهاداتهم قائمون 5 counts والذين هم على صلاتهم يحافظون أولئك 5 counts في جنات 2 counts with a noon, and then jannatim mukramun. The translation: and those within whose wealth is a known right for the petitioner and the deprived, and those who believe in the day of recompense, and those who are fearful of the punishment of their Lord. Indeed, the punishment of their Lord is not that from which one is safe, and those who guard their private parts, except from their wives or their right hands possess, for indeed they are not to be blamed. But whoever seeks beyond that, then they are the transgressors, and those who are to their trusts and promises attentive, and those who are in their testimonies upright, and those who carefully maintain their prayer, they will be in gardens honored. So this is continuing the characteristics, 8 characteristics of the believers after what we heard yesterday, al-musallin. Al-musallin, those who guard their salah and they are constant in their prayer, and it's going to be mentioned at the end also. And after this, these characteristics came after stating that human beings are إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا, that indeed mankind was created anxious. إِذَا مَسَّهُ الشَّرُّ جَزُوعًا, when evil touches him, he's impatient. وَإِذَا مَسَّهُ الْخَيْرُ مَنُوعًا, and if goodness touches him, he withholds it and become greedy. إِلَّا, then except, then these characteristics of the believers comes in place, which shows the importance of being upon these characteristics, and it's in the ability of each and every one. It just requires for the person to be patient and to seek help from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the ayah of today, وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ, those who have in their wealth, فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومٌ, they have in their wealth a known right. So there is a portion of their wealth that is basically the rights of others. And of course, the obvious one is the zakah. Zakah is the rights of the poor. And before that, it's the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the believers, if they fulfill certain criteria, their wealth is a certain way, and there's ahkam rulings that governs this. Either a person has the knowledge of it or he has the people of knowledge. And the zakah does not get cancelled by time, meaning that if a person didn't pay zakah 20 years ago, and now he realized that he was supposed to pay zakah 20 years ago, he has to still pay it. It does not, become void or so by time, or as some of the rulings even. But this is something that a person has to do. Once he had the means to give the zakah. What if he doesn't remember? He has to do the best he can in judgment, because this is the rights of the poor. So the zakah is obvious. But also, some of the ulama in the tafsir, they said that what is meant here by this verse is not just the zakah. And even as Mujahid, rahimahullah, he said in the tafsir of the ayah, what is meant here, the haqqun ma'loom, the known right, is other than the zakah. Because there are more rights when it comes to our wealth, more than just the zakah. You have the right of your wife to spend on her. The woman in Islam, she has no financial responsibility, even though she has a completely independent financial dhimma or being. She can own and she can buy and sell and so on. But when it comes to financial responsibilities, it's the responsibility of the husband. And before that, the father. And if there's no husband or father, and the brother, then the state, and so on. So the rights of the wife, the rights of the children, the rights of the relatives, if they are in need. So some said that it's more than just the zakah, because there are more rights in one's wealth, more than just the zakah. And there are many statements with this regard. So that's why Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he said in the tafsir of the ayah, min zakatin wa sadaqah. So al-haqq al-ma'lum, haqq is right, ma'lum, known. So that's to be also known with ilm, zakah and charity. وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ مَعْلُومُهُ لِلسَّائِلِ وَالْمَحْرُومِ, to those who ask, as-sa'il, right? And al-mahrum is the one that is deprived, and it seems from the meaning that he is not among those who ask. So those who are poor, they're all not, presenting themselves in front of people to ask for their wealth. Some of them, they have iffa and dignity and honor, and they don't ask. لَا يَسْأَلُونَ النَّاسَ إِلْحَافًا. And they're still poor, and they are in need of, charity, but they don't ask the people. So it is the responsibility of the believers to find these people. And that's why if someone knows someone like this, they should encourage others to give them from charity, and not to humiliate them, not to expose them, not to tell the people, we need to give that person charity or so. It should be honored that they are in need and they're not having means, of course, to earn and things like this. And people might overlook these types of people. And al-mahrum here, the ulama in the tafsir, they said more than one thing. The one that does not have a share or a right among the Muslims when it comes to the booty of the war, for example, he is deprived, when, for example, they get the booty of the war or some other things, and he does not have a share there because he's not one of the categories of those who would have this, then it's to be given. Someone that doesn't have the means to gain money or so, this is also one of the meanings. Someone that basically doesn't have money, and that's in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أفرأيتم ما تحرثون أأنتم تزرعونه أم نحن الزارعون لو نشاء لجعلناه حطاما فظلتم تفكهون إنا لمغرمون بل نحن محرومون. Right? They said محرومون. If their cultivation is destroyed, they would say we have been deprived. Right? And also the people of Ashabul Jannah, if you remember in Surah Al-Qalam, they said when their garden was destroyed, they said بل نحن محرومون. So that gives maybe, and this is one of the meanings that some of the ulama, they said, like Ibn Zayd and others, that the meaning of al-mahrum here is the one that had a calamity that took his wealth. So he becomes deprived from these two verses that I just mentioned, because they're both in the context of someone lost his wealth all of a sudden or something like this. And all of these meanings are correct. So these people, they have rights upon others or upon the Muslims in general. So the verses is praising the believers, those who they understand that their wealth is not just theirs. There's rights of others, and it's by the mercy of Allah. It's not the entire wealth, but they recognize that there are rights of others that needs to be observed when it comes to their wealth. للسائل والمحروم, to the one that asks, and the one that asks, this is not the best thing for a person to do. And when is it permissible for a person to ask people for money? This is if a person is taking all of the means and there is no other means to take. Then it's permissible, and it's only permissible to take what sustains his life. It's a very dangerous thing if someone asks for people's money, especially that if he doesn't need it and he comes on the Day of Judgment. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the authentic hadith, لَيْسَ فِي وَجْهِهِ مُزْعَةُ لَحْمٍ, he will come in the Day of Judgment without a piece of flesh on his face, because he humiliated himself in this life. So, and more details with this. So again, the characteristics of the believers, there's portion of their wealth that the rights of others, whether it's zakah or sadaqah, with its rulings. And then the next ayah, وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, those who believe, يُصَدِّقُون from الصدق, they believe in the truthfulness of the day of ad-din, or the day of al-qiyamah. They believe in the hereafter. And this is, comparing that to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the beginning of the surah about the disbelievers, when they إِنَّهُمْ يَرَوْنَهُ بَعِيدًا, they see it as something far. So the believers, they believe in the last day, and because of that, they guarding their salah, they give from their wealth in zakah and charity and so on. So they have the certainty in the Day of Judgment, so they do the acts of worship accordingly, seeking rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and having the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. وَالَّذِينَ يُصَدِّقُونَ بِيَوْمِ الدِّينِ, and in يوم الدين, like Malik Yawm al-Din, comes from the meaning of the recompense, when people will be paid back, or whether it's in rewards or punishment. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ مِنْ عَذَابِ رَبِّهِمْ مُشْفِقُونَ, those who are, when it comes to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mushfiqun, they have the fear with concern when it comes to the punishment of Allah. They fear the punishment of Allah, so therefore they stay away from whatever gets them closer to the punishment of Allah, or make them subjected to the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't rely when they get themselves closer to sins, they don't say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiver, and they go ahead and commit sins. This is the ways of those who are ignorant. But for the believers, they take all the means to run away from haram, and they constantly repent to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and if they fall into the sin, so they stay away from the haram, and they also still have the fear of the punishment of the hereafter, because this is an act of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a result of this fear of Allah, they don't overlook the obligation, and they do not transgress any of the limits of Allah. As Imam al-Tabari rahimahullah, he said this is the benefit of their fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imam Sa'di rahimahullah, he said خائفون وجلون, they fear Allah, so they leave as a result of that what gets them closer to the punishment of Allah. والذين هم, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about the believers, إن كنا قبل في أهلنا مشفقين, that they would say that when they are in Jannah. When they are in Jannah, they would remember their life in this world, and they would say, we used to have the fear of Allah when we were among our families. When you're among your family, this is the most time that you have feel of security or contentment or so. So they would remember the punishment of Allah, and they would have the fear of Allah. إِنَّ عَذَابَ رَبِّهِمْ غَيْرُ مَأْمُونَ. Why? Because indeed the punishment of the Lord, غَيْرُ مَأْمُونَ, is not, nobody's safe from it. Al-amn is security. Nobody has security from it, because it's not based on one's culture or one's race or one's nationality or one's lineage. It's based on one's actions and, of course, the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whoever in this life feel that he's secure, he's not going to be punished in the Day of Judgment, like that, just guarantee it for himself. This is, this is evil for a person to think that way, because who can impose that upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So therefore, everybody, the hearts can change. Who can guarantee that he will continue to live his life and to die upon the deen of Islam? And that's why the healthy fear keeps the person always steadfast upon the deen of Allah. And these verses brings the fear of Allah. More, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ حَافِظُونَ, those who guard their private parts. That means they stay away from haram when it comes to their private parts, except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted for them. They stay away from zina, they stay away from the action of the people of Lut, and anything else, anything that is forbidden, whether it's in, also there are certain actions that are forbidden, even with relations with one's wife and so on. And anything that is other than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the next verse, إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُم, except with their wives, أَزْوَاجِهِمْ أَوْ مَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُهُم, or their slaves, basically their female slaves. That's it. فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. And the second one does not exist in the days that we live in now, so it's only except إِلَّا عَلَىٰ أَزْوَاجِهِمْ, except those who accept their wives. فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ. There's no blame on them if they would basically have relations. And it shows that if someone get married, or even as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permitted up to 4 and so on, if he's just among them, this is not against the zuhd in this dunya. It's not against being attached to the hereafter or so, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear, and this is the sunnah, the way of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. فَإِنَّهُمْ غَيْرُ مَلُومِينَ فَمَنِ ابْتَغَى وَرَاءَ ذَلِكَ. Whoever seeks beyond that, beyond what's mentioned, beyond their wives and what the right hand possess, فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْعَادُونَ, they are the transgressors. These are the ones that go beyond the limits. They disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They fall into the haram. And it's how beautifully it's stated. It did not mention all of the different evil actions that comes as a result of not guarding the private parts. It's mentioned that everything is forbidden except the wives and the right hand possess. That means anything else. Everything else is haram. So there is no need to have a specific evidence for this act or that act when it comes to the private parts. It's only as mentioned in the verse. Then وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَاتِهِمْ وَعَهْدِهِمْ رَاعُونَ, and those who, characteristics of the believers, those who when it comes to their amanat, their matters that are entrusted with, and their covenants, ra'un, they maintain it, they take care of it, whether it's between them and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or between them and the people. all the different types of amanat, all the different types of things that they're entrusted with, whether it's money, whether it's physical matters, whether it's non-physical matters. Someone tells you a secret or something like this and things like that. So anything, whether it's secrets, whether it's wealth, whether it's money, it's all things that are entrusted with a person. Either he betrays it or he guards it. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِشَهَادَاتِهِمْ قَائِمُونَ. And those who are with their shahadat, with their witness, قَائِمُون, they're upright. That means they don't witness except what they know for sure. And when it comes to witnessing, like in the court of law or in front of people, when it comes to giving a rule or a judgment, a person does not witness except what he saw with his own eyes, like the sun. You don't witness based on someone else said something, right? It has to be something that you know with certainty, that you saw with your own eyes, without increasing, without decreasing, without anything, without even concealing it if a person is asked to witness. And he does not favor his closest people or the closest friends if it comes to witness. It becomes a major sin. Or sometimes people might favor a poor versus a rich person. And we talked about that before, and Surah An-Nisa is very clear about this. Even if it's against yourself. If you're witnessing, even if it's against yourself, it's not permissible to lie, to save oneself when it comes to witness. And the same being a witness. And the same thing, a person, for example, you have a case where someone that is extremely poor versus someone that is extremely rich. And the dispute in something that is insignificant to the rich, $1, for example, right? And the poor person will be in trouble as a result of that. And the poor person is wrong. When it comes to witness, you have to witness with the truth, even if it's something like this, or against your own self, or against your own parents, anyone, in the context of witnessing for or against. A sulh, or to bring peace, is something else. Telling people to let things go, forgive. This is something else. So وَأَقِيمُوا الشَّهَادَةَ لِلَّهِ, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, establish the shahada to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the verses of the Quran talks about that very clearly. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِشَهَادَاتِهِمْ قَائِمُونَ. And then also at the end it says وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ. Again, those who guard their salah. So the first one, they were constantly doing it, and here يُحَافِظُونَ, they are perfecting it so that it's not weak and deficient. From al-hifz, when you make hifz of something, that means you guard it, you keep it, you save it. And it's something that is continuous, consistently done, because it's in the present tense. Right? And this is not just to confirm the verse, that we, verse number 23, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ دَائِمُونَ. This is not just to confirm the meaning here that salah, they guard their salah, but there's extra meaning here. So, which is basically, which gives basically the meaning that they perfect their salah. So, and this is bringing the end to the beginning of things, right? So, it shows the virtue of the salah. So it gives the strength and the continuously and the consistency in perfecting their salah. أولئك, these are the people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, they are fi jannatin mukramun, they will be honored, and they're among the people of Jannah. As we see the ayat, وَالَّذِينَ فِي أَمْوَالِهِمْ حَقٌّ. حق is a right, معلوم, known, right? And from عين لام ميم. And it's well known, the right, and it shows the virtue and the importance of ilm and knowledge. للسائل, from sa'al, from the one that asks. والمحروم, from the one that is deprived. From ha'ra, mim. And the haram is something that is forbidden, and then mahrum is someone that has been deprived. And that's how the forbidden actions should be. A person stays away from it in a way that it's forbidden. And the same thing when someone is deprived, as if whatever he's deprived from, it's forbidden on him. He's away from it. So للسائل والمحروم. والذين, and those who يصدقون, from صاد دال قاء, يصدقون, شدة means they believe in, they accept the truth, they believe in the truthfulness of. يصدقون بيوم الدين, the day of a deen or the judgment. والذين هم, and see the hum and things like this is to stress the meaning. والذين هم من عذاب from the punishment of their Lord ربهم مشفقون from شين فاء قاف. And الشفق, you know, is when the sun sets and there's that redness in the horizon. This is called الشفق. فلا أقسم بالشفق. But here الشفق from شفقة and الإشفاق is as the horizon, when there is the redness there in the horizon is mixed with the darkness of the night, with the light of the day. So al-ishfaq also, it gives that sense of something is mixed together. So it's fear with concern, with actions. You fear of something. If a person fears something and he just sit and just continue to have the fear of something, that's not shafaqa. Shafaqa is when you fear, it's a mixture of fear and grief or sadness, fear of concern that a person would act according to this. وهم من الساعة مشفقون. They have that concern when it comes to the day of judgment. And when you have shafaqa towards someone, that means you feel bad for someone, that you want to do something for them. So here they are the believers. When it comes to the punishment of Allah, they are mushfiqun. They fear the punishment of Allah, and therefore they act accordingly, running away from it by staying away from haram and fulfilling the obligations. Inna عذاب ربهم, indeed the punishment of their Lord, and the significance of Rabbihim, He's the one that knows best. غير مأمون is not مأمون, secure, from alif mim nun, right? Is not secured. And you see mahrum, ma'loom, ma'moon, it's nouns that it shows the consistency of it. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِفُرُوجِهِمْ, and those who are to their furuj, which is the plural of farj, which is the private part. And al-furja is basically the you know, when you have a furja in the wall, right? That means it's a space or a hole in the wall, right? So this is where it comes from. And also when you know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, man farraj al muslim min kurba, farraj, that means he opens, he relieves a tightness for a believer. So الذين هم لفروجهم حافظون, that means they are guardians from حفظ, they guarded, they protected. إلا على, except upon their azwaj, which is the plural of zawj, which is the spouse. That's also for both men and women. أو ما ملكت أيمانهم, or those who the أيمانهم, the right hand, possess, which is basically refers to the slaves. فإنهم غير ملومين, indeed they are not to be ملومين, not to be blamed, blameworthy, from lam waw mim, right? فلا تلوموني, shaitan would say in the day of judgment, فلا تلوموني ولوموا أنفسكم, do not blame me and blame yourself, right? And النفس is لوامة, you know, لا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة, that always blame itself, you know. So then they are not to be blamed. فمن ابتغى, whoever seeks, from بغين, yeah, وراء ذلك, beyond, from وراء means behind, beyond, وراء ذلك فأولئك, that means it's like limits. فأولئك هم العادون, they are the عادون, from عين دال واو, which is the transgression or going beyond the borders, like, and also the enemies are like this. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ لِأَمَانَتِهِمْ, and those who are to their amana, which is again from alif mim noon, but this is the trust and things like that. And وَعَهَدِهِمْ from ayn ha dal, al-ahd is to guard something, is the covenant. Ra'un, that means they observe it, they take care of it, from ra' ayn ya. And al-ra'i, ra'i al-ghanam, the shepherd, because he maintained his the cattle and so on. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ بِشَهَادَاتِهِمْ, and those who are with their shahadat, their testimonies, from shin ha dal. قائمون, they stand firm, they don't compromise. وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَلَى صَلَاتِهِمْ يُحَافِظُونَ, and those who are upon their salah, يُحَافِظُون, they guard their salah, they protect it from weakness and deficiency. أُولَئِكَ فِي جَنَّاتٍ مُكْرَمُونَ, they are in Jannat mukramun, they're honored, from kaf ra mim. So great characteristics that as it's also mentioned in the beginning of Surah Al-Mu'minun, some of the characteristics of the believers that would save them from the punishment of the hereafter, that would make them have fasbir sabran jamila, make a person have a beautiful patience and be saved from the punishment of the hellfire, opposite to what the disbelievers are upon, as it's mentioned in the previous verses before that. And these are the people of Jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who have these great characteristics. بارك الله فيكم, and we'll see you inshallah Saturday inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your day and night and make us among those who witness the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and acknowledge it and to be grateful to Allah. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.